Hello and welcome to Season 1, Episode 15 of Jack and Being Frank. I'm Jack Ivanovich here with my co-host Frank Aranio, and we'll be discussing about the Eagles' dominating win over the Commanders and the last-second win for Mahomes, or a last drive type of win, went down to the wire against Mahomes and the Chiefs defeat the Bills again. We will also do a checkup on a lot of the Knicks players because it's the halfway point, and we want to shed some. And we also want to shed some light because the Knicks have two All-Star starters in Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson. So I want to start out by asking this question because it was big when I was watching the videos earlier this morning about the game. A lot about the touch push. Do you think that the NFL should consider banning the play? Like, what is your opinion on it?
As I was watching the Eagles game yesterday, it was annoying me. And it's annoyed me before. And I said out loud, I was watching the game with my family, and I said at some point when it happened, I said, they got to get rid of this. They got to get rid of this play. It annoys me. And it's like, it's just something about it. I like there's no way to stop it. But that was my thought on it yesterday during the NFC game. Fast forward to the AFC game last night, and the Bills, who do the tush push as well, they don't do it nearly as well. I mean, they got stopped on a 2-point conversion. They got stopped on it a few times last night. Now, I know the Eagles got stopped. I think it was at a 2-point conversion, but I mean, they basically never get stopped. They're great at it. They pretty much perfected it. So after I saw the Bills not do it nearly as well, I said to myself, you know what? The Eagles just have it pretty much perfected. Like, good for them. The Bills are trying it. They're not nearly as good at it. So it really changed my mind last night. So now I'm like, it annoys me, but defense has got to get creative and try to find a way to stop it. Like, I have no idea to stop it, but I now it's like I don't think it should be banned. I mean, if they banned it, I'd be like, okay, fine, because I don't like the play. But it's kind of like lame if you ban it, though. It's like, oh, let's ban it because we can't stop it. Well, find a way to stop it. And again, like, the Bills don't do it nearly as well as the Eagles. So credit to the Eagles for perfecting this play.
Yeah, my thing about it is when I was watching the game, I don't even think they did the touch push the way the Eagles do it. I didn't think they did it. I think they tried and they thought in their mind that Josh Allen's a superhuman athlete that can get over a yard just by himself without even trying to have line up. You need to line up two big guys. That's what the Eagles do. They line up two 300, 200-pound guys in front of them, and they just push.
I heard someone say that when Josh Allen does it, he stands too upright, where Jalen Hurts
tried to do it himself. He needs to rely on. You need to put two bigger guys in front of you. They think of this. Okay, Josh Allen, this big guy, but they're gonna stop that. You got to put two people in front of you, and that's why I think it should be banned. That's why I'm gonna give some pushback because the Eagles do that. It's impossible to stop when you have two tight ends that weigh X amount of pounds and then a lineman. The Bills didn't do that. That's why they didn't do it. That's a bad coaching by Sean McDermott again. He didn't call it Joe Brady, and they're like, you've got to run it the right way, and they didn't run it the right way, which I don't understand. That's why I think.
But if they didn't run it the right way, then that's on them. So I think it's an argument against banning it because that's the Bills' fault. I mean, it's not the Eagles' problem that the Bills don't do it as well. And going back to what I was saying before you brought up your points, I heard someone say today that Josh Allen, when he does the tush push, he stands too upright, where Jalen Hurts gets lowered. He bends his knees more and gets leverage, which makes it harder to tackle him. I'm no expert on this play. I'm no expert on football. But when I heard that, that just makes a lot of sense. So it goes to the point I made that the Bills, they don't run it nearly as well as the Eagles. So if they're going to continue to do the play, If the Bills are going to continue to do it, then they got to do a better job of executing it. If they need better personnel for it, well, they get better personnel or don't run the play if you don't have the personnel. So that's on the Bills. And again,
They
the
should have
play
ran the
was
ball with
annoying
James
the
Cook.
heck out of me during the
James-
NFC game yesterday.
yeah.
I'm like, I just can't stand this play. It's annoying.
They
Ban
were
it.
going to award a touchdown.
Get rid of it. But I changed my mind when I watched the AFC game and I watched the Bills struggle to run it. It's like, hey, Eagles got it perfected. So you know what? You want to run it better. And then the defenses, find a way to stop it. I don't know what the answer is, but find a way. But the NFL should allow the defenses to counter. Like, I think the defenses are so, restricted now with all these rules. It's very tough to play defense. It's an offensive-driven game. So, the defenses start coming up with a way to stop it, and the NFL says, oh, you can't do this because of safety issue. Well, no, then just ban the play.
Yeah, James, I don't understand why they kept doing it over and over again if it didn't work. Because you have James Cook at the backfield who played tremendous. They were running it at a will against the Chiefs. They couldn't have ran it in for another yard. I know it's goal line, but you're going to have to give your back a chance. You never gave James Cook a chance.
I think that's why the Bills lost.
Yeah.
That's why they lose. That's why they never get it done. Like, I'm sorry, you lost the game again. I don't want to hear, oh, they're so close, or the referees.
Yeah.
No. You lost again. Again. I don't want to hear you're close. It doesn't matter you're close. You lost.
You lost.
And with the officiating, if you want to
And
go
again,
into that.
yes, I do think they had some bad spots, but they had, at the end of the day, they had a chance to win at the end of the game. It's not like they had a bad spot, then, the Chiefs got like 7 points from that, then there's nothing to come back from that. Okay, I'll get it if that's
But that play
but they got a chance to win.
That fourth down play, they ran a sneak.
Yeah. That's a QB sneak. That's not a tush push. That's a difference between the two.
Well, you ran a sneak. So you know what? Maybe hand the ball off then. Because your tush push wasn't good. I know Josh Allen's good with the sneak, but you know what? It was close.
I'm bringing up James Cook's
stats and
right
you had two officials spotting it. One had it as a first down. One didn't. But you left it too close. I thought it was a first down. I thought the official at the top of the screen had it right, who was coming down. He had as a first down. The other official coming from the bottom of the screen, watching on TV on CBS yesterday, had it short. They went with that spot. Then it was reviewed, and the spot stood. But you know what? Buffalo left it too close.
Yeah, they
I'm sorry. You just left it too close. And I know you say, well, first down's a first down. But you know what? You ran a play. You ran a sneak that you really didn't gain much. And throughout the history of football, spotting the ball, and I heard someone say this earlier today, spotting the ball, it's supposed to be objective, but really it's subjective. It's not that there's bias there. It's just spotting the ball is a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
There's a lot to watch for. And you know what it is? And I heard this point earlier, and it's a great point. When you run a sneak or you run the tush push, a play like that, everybody's bunched up. So it's a lot harder to spot the ball versus if you just run the football or it's a passing play, it's easier to spot the ball. You run a play like that, like it's tough to spot, and you're going to get a guy coming from the top, referee, the guy coming from the bottom. They got two different spots. That happens all the time.
That's why if you want to ban it and you want to say wipe your hands, we can't spot the ball if you run a tush push. Okay, wipe your hands, ban it, because you can't spot it. It's impossible to spot the ball. Well, then wipe your hands is done. Because you can't just award
I don't agree with that because you've always had sneaks, and sneaks are tough to spot the ball. So you're not going to ban quarterback sneaks.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's an argument to ban the tush push, and I was on board with that strongly until the AFC game last night. I'm like, you know what? No, don't ban this thing because the Bills don't do it well. The Eagles got it perfected, and it's kind of lame to ban it. And again, I was all for banning it. The play annoys me. It's going to still annoy me. But credit to the Eagles for coming up with a play that's just almost impossible to stop.
Do that. He's probably.
And credit to them because they continued on with it after Jason Kelce retired. He was the key to the play. He retires. You got a new center in there, and then yesterday they had the backup center, right? And they still run it great.
Yeah,
credit to them for continuing to run it the way they do.
Yeah,
I changed my mind. You know what? I'm. Don't ban the thing. It's still going to annoy me. It's going to annoy me in the Super Bowl. But Kansas City, try to stop it.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. My
Maybe
big thing here.
Spagnuolo will come up with something. He's the best
Oh
defensive
my,
coordinator in football,
did you
one of the
see
best
that
of all
blitz he
time.
had on the last? I know we're trying to jump from game to game, but the Commanders game was whatever. I mean, we'll talk. But Steve Spagnuolo dialing at that blitz was perfect.
Oh,
I
what a
know
blitz. What a blitz that was. That was beautiful.
it had a chance. Okay, Josh Allen can't pick up the corner blitz, but there were three people blitzing him. It wasn't just they got absolutely dusted. Steve Spagnuolo out coached everyone that Bill's sideline. Like he tried to throw a hell, which Grant. Lucky to them, they almost had it. Dalton Kincaid could have had that catch. It was in his hands. It was in the breadbasket. He should have caught it. So lucky for them, they even got an opportunity at it. That was just a chuck. Basically, you're just chucking it up, hoping for the best, and it's never what you want to happen with the game on the line.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Allen made an incredible throw. Although I think he gets too much credit for that. I hear people, "Oh, what a great throw!" He's just chucking the ball up,
Yeah,
hoping something happens.
that's why I say,
Let's stop, please.
yeah,
I mean, look, you know me with the Bills, but it's like the guy. Look, I know the guy's a great player, incredible arm
yeah,
talent. He could run. He's amazing. But let's pipe down with that throw. He's just looking to get rid of that ball. It's fourth down. He's just looking
yeah,
to get
yeah.
rid of it and
No,
hope
I'm just
something
saying
happens. And something did happen. Like the
yeah.
ball should
No,
have
I'm
been
just saying
caught.
how Kincaid could have caught it. I'm just like
Yeah, but what a great blitz.
Yeah, great blitz.
And the coaching was enormous. I mean, I think you could argue the biggest factor in that game
It is coaching.
is Andy Reid overall. He's
And
the head
Steve
coach. He's one of
Spagnuolo,
the
yeah.
best of all time. I don't know if he's top five. Like, he's one of the best head coaches in the history of the National Football League. Spagnuolo is one of the best defensive coordinators ever. I mean, their coaching is enormous. I mean, the coaching in that game, it was so clear the major advantage that the Chiefs had. Once again, McDermott doesn't get it done. I don't know. I mean, I don't think the Bills are going to make a change. Look, McDermott's won a lot of games, but they continue to come up short.
I don't
You
want to.
just so clearly
I'm looking at
see.
James Cook's stats. You don't run it with him on the one. He's 6.5 yards per carry. Like
Yeah.
that's what he had a tremendous game. That's the only reason they were in the game because they found out they could run the ball well. Yes, Josh Allen 237, but I feel like what really kind of gave him a chance and got their way back in the game was that pounding the rock.
Yeah, and Tony Romo said it right before the second half began. He said, "Buffalo, you got to run the ball." And they did, and they had a lot of success with it.
Well, yeah, because when you have those QBs, you really you can't take a lot. Like when you have James Cook and you have Josh Allen in the backfield, as much as they're gonna lose every single time in these games, they're a great 1-2 punch. So it's really hard at the end of the day to take away one thing. So that's what they have for them. That's what keeps them in these type of games.
Yeah. I mean, what other thoughts you have? What other thoughts you have? Are we sticking with Buffalo? I think we should stick with Buffalo because the other game was a blowout. I mean, credit to the Eagles, but I think there's a lot more to talk about with Buffalo and Kansas City. And that was the marquee game and that rivalry and all that's happened there in the last few years with Kansas City and Buffalo.
Well, I think the coaching here is I was talking to my friend after the game about how do you beat the Chiefs? And he put up a very good point of you cannot leave the field without scoring. And that's just it might sound like nothing, but you have to score every single time to beat this. It's impossible because this coaching will take advantage of you. Or the players and coaching for the Chiefs, they go together. Mahomes will take advantage. So you're gonna have to be perfect football. That's why the Bills are not a perfect team. These guys are not perfect teams. So it's hard. You have to score every single possession. I don't know if you kind of can got to build on that. I just feel like to beat the Chiefs, you have to score every single time you get on the field. You have to be perfect defensively. You have to make a big time play. One of your corners have to come up and make a heroic interception.
The Bills didn't play well enough to win. They just didn't. I mean, they didn't play a poor game, but they didn't play well enough to beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And I mean, So they got a field goal, Buffalo, the first time they scored. So not enough. The Chiefs scored 7, Buffalo scores 3. Now, Buffalo takes the lead at 10-7, but then the Chiefs scored 2 touchdowns in a row, make it 21-10. Then the Bills score a touchdown before the end of the half. And
I thought they could have tacked on. The Chiefs
Kansas
definitely
City got a penalty, right? Well, I forget what the penalty was, but there was a penalty, and then it was on the extra point and offsides. So Buffalo kicked the extra point to go up 21-17.
wait.
Kansas City went offsides.
So
Buffalo took the penalty
and 1 yard line
to move the ball from the 2 to the 1 to go for 2. So they took the point off the board, went for 2, and then was that the tush push on the 1 and they missed it?
Yeah, the tush push, and I think he took a step backwards and then just threw the ball to Curtis Samuel or somebody, and they didn't get it.
It was a throw on that one?
It was kind of a whatever. Like, he took a step backwards. He was done, basically.
Okay, so they wound up not getting the 2. Yeah. So they took a point off the board. 3-point swing. They take the point off the board. They don't score the 2 points. So what did you think of that? Do you think they should have just kept the point, or did you agree with them going for 2?
As much as there's no margin for error, I feel like you have to take the 2 there. You're going to have to trust that.
So take the point off the board that you already got?
It's a tough call. I do get the thing, but you cannot make any mistakes. But it's the 1 yard line. I think you have to trust your offensive coordinator and Sean McDermott, the coach, to dial a play to get 1 yard.
I agree with you. In the moment when they did that, I agreed with it. So I have to be honest. I agree with the move. I know you're taking a point off the board, but I think to beat the Chiefs,
you can't.
You got to do that. It's like, okay, we can move the ball to 1 yard line and get an additional point. Now we're risking losing that point. We scored on the extra point, but I agreed with it in the moment. And I know there's people that are totally criticizing. Now, look, if somebody in the moment criticized it and they said, no way, you don't do that, fine. But second guessing it, no, I'm not with that. But in the moment, I thought it was worth doing that.
I think you can't make mistakes, but calculated risks are fine. If you calculate that, and Sean McDermott, not calculate like analytics, if you just understand that you could do it, I think you go ahead and do it. I think that's a calculated risk. And I feel like you don't want to make mistakes, but you also can't handicap yourself to when you only score like 10 to 12 points. You're going to have to put some points on the board, and that's going to have to be some risk-taking, but you can't take too much. That's why you get into situations like this.
You see how big 2-point conversions were yesterday. They missed that one. Then they went up 22-21 in the third quarter. They missed that 2-point conversion. And then the Chiefs came down and scored after that 4th down stop that was controversial. The Chiefs came down and scored a touchdown to make it 27-22, and then they made the 2-point conversion. So 2-point conversions yesterday were enormous.
Yeah, they were big, and I think that it comes down to coaching and execution. And the Chiefs were better executed. And we all bring this up, this 2-point conversion stuff. You might think it's just 2 points, but that's a small margin of error. I get it. It's always in games a small margin of error, but especially when you're playing Mahomes and the Chiefs, because the coaching and Mahomes and Kelsey, those 3 points that you left on the board, they can get that back in an instant. They can, like, I think they said on the broadcast, the Chiefs are now at the 50, and it's 1 second into them getting the ball. So that type of stuff matters to me. Like when the broadcast is saying now, okay, the Chiefs are already at their own side. We've been a minute into the drive. That stuff matters when you're not converting.
Yeah. It's the Chiefs don't beat themselves. They don't make the big mistakes. They don't commit the big turnover. Yesterday was their first turnover since week 11. I mean, that's insane. I mean, they went – so week 11, I don't know when their bye was, but there were 7 more weeks in the season, right? So they didn't commit a turnover the first 7 weeks – the last 7 weeks of the regular season. They didn't commit a turnover in your divisional game against Houston. So that's 8 games in a row. They went 8 games without turning the ball over. I mean, that's insane. So all the talk about officials, and look, I think there's problems with the officials. And yesterday, I was fired up about it. I'm rooting for the Chiefs, but I was fired up about it. I'm like, it doesn't sit right with me. Like, I don't like when the great team, the great players are favored with the officiating. I just don't accept it. Like, it just should be objective. It makes me suspicious. Maybe I go
especially
too
when you get
far
to
with
this
it,
point.
but I think there's a lot of people that do that, and it really just makes you wonder. So, that spot at the time with that spot, I'm like, of course the Chiefs get the call, and I think it's a legitimate reaction. Or that ball was ruled a catch that really looked like it hit the ground. Where the receiver was
Yeah,
Worthy was the
yeah.
receiver, the Bills defender. I mean, that looked like that ball hit the ground. So when that happened, it's like, oh, come on. Like the Chiefs, of course, get the call. The calls they got against Houston. I mean, they get calls, but they're not the first team that it's ever been like that. The Patriots used to get calls. Crossing sports, Jordan used to get calls all the time, which infuriated me as a Knicks fan. So, that happens. I don't like it, but it is a part of sports. I don't think it's going away. But then, you
Well,
think
it's
about things
because
in the moment. So yesterday during the game, and again, I'm rooting for the Chiefs, but the refereeing, the officiating was ticking me off. But then today, this morning, I was thinking about the game, and I thought about it a little later in the day. And I'm like, you know what? The Chiefs are just better. They're not that much better than the Bills, but they're better. The coaching's a lot better. Mahomes is better than Allen. Allen's great, but Mahomes is better. The Chiefs don't beat themselves. They call the right plays. They execute the plays. They get things done when they need to get them done. And you know what? We talked about it last week, and we both said it. The Chiefs will score 30 plus for the first time this year, and they did. They scored 32.
yeah, I mean, and also they get contribution from like Worthy had 101. Like they're gonna get guys who perform well in these type of moments because again, Mahomes just gets people involved, and I think they're better when it comes down the stretch. Definitely. I mean, they just
Well, they've won 17 consecutive one-score games. That's not luck. That's not officiating. And
yeah.
again, I have issues with the officiating, but they just get it done. They're great. They just know how to win. They win every type of game. Their
And
coaching
Kelsey
is
didn't really do anything.
impeccable. They just
Yeah.
they know what it takes to win. They have the players, they have the coaches, the organization. They're just a machine. They've been to 7 straight AFC championship games. I mean, the Patriots never did that during their run. I mean, they were incredible. 6 Super Bowl championships, 9 appearances, 2-decade dynasty, basically. But they never went to 7 straight. I don't believe they did. 7 straight AFC championship games. I have to go back and look that up or think about that, but I'm pretty sure they didn't go to 7 in a row. They went to a bunch in a row, but never 7. Now this is 5 out of 6 years that the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl. 3 years in a row. I mean, going for a three-peat. It's just, I mean, the success is remarkable.
I mean, the team around Mahomes is. I mean, the defense is outstanding. It's always gonna be outstanding, but I feel like that's why I really think it's more coaching because this team around Mahomes is kind of underwhelming. Not underwhelming, like underwhelming players, but they show up. I do think it's a lot of coaching. I think that's a credit. Chris Jones great on the defense, but besides that, I mean, the offense. Xavier Worthy played great, but like they don't really have that many weapons. But they're coaching; they get players open, and I think that's the difference between them and other teams. Is you can have the weapons, but if you don't know how to get them open in those type of games, close games where your best your cute or your CB1s on the wide receiver one, when you can't get players open, or it's hard to, they know how to get players open. I think that's also one of the biggest things.
I was wrong. I just looked it up. The Patriots went to 8 straight from 2011 to 2018. I was wrong about that. That's remarkable. And
Yeah.
Brady in his career was in like 14 conference title games. I think 13 with the Patriots and 1 with Tampa. I'm close on that, but they did go to 8 straight. That is remarkable. But I'd bet on Kansas City getting to 8 straight next year.
Yeah. This team is, I think it's inevitable is the right word. Now that's what I felt like about Brady. whenever I felt like it was inevitable we're going to see him in the. I think it's about these, especially in the NFL with these QBs. When you know who's at the helm, you're pretty confident in this team getting all the way with Mahomes, and then you saw Brady. It felt inevitable that they were going to come out on top, and it felt like they just make their players better. I think that's the one thing about both of them.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they
And
make everybody around them better. They're
yeah,
incredible talents, incredible quarterbacks, incredible leaders. I mean, they do everything. They're just the ultimate winners. And Mahomes is playing for history. The Chiefs are with trying to win 3 consecutive Super Bowls, and Mahomes trying to win his 4th. Brady with 7. So Mahomes has a shot. I mean, there's still 4 more to win. Got a chance to win 1 in 2 weeks. But that's in play. I mean, look, you got to stay healthy. And I mean, look, it's a lot more winning to do. But the Chiefs are just a machine. And what's Mahomes, like 28, 29? I mean, he has, God willing, he stays healthy. I mean, a lot of more years ahead. So, I mean, he's playing for history. I mean, the stakes are obviously enormous 13 days from now in New Orleans.
yeah, it's gonna be a big game for them. It's gonna be a good game, but yeah, Kansas City. I mean, they're inevitable. They got it's been they got so many they got so much good coaching there, which I think is the reason why they're here. The biggest reason why they're here is the coaching and the quarterback. I think when you put those two together, usually a winning formula. When you talk about Tom Brady and Belichick, I think like Mahomes and Andy Reid. I think those two. We can cross sports. I mean, Tyronn Lue and LeBron. We could like Steph Curry and
Tyronn
Steve
Lue
Kerr.
and LeBron.
That was not good. Steve Kerr and Stephen Curry. Okay, Steve Kerr and Steph. That's one. That has to be
Yeah,
one.
this topic I think is tough to cross sports because they're so different.
Yeah, but if you have to face the franchise and you have it, I think it's tough. And I don't.
I
Yeah,
think NFL coaches have a lot more effect on the game than NBA.
and
NBA, you
especially
have
on
the
the
stars. I know it's a generalization, but like I think I could have won championships with the Warriors as the coach. I think I could have won championships with the Bulls. With you, like, just go play. I mean, come on. I know. I know it's generals, but like Jack, you could have been the Bulls coach and they would have won 6. Seriously.
yeah,
I mean, Michael Jordan, Michael, go do your thing.
yeah. But yeah, I think it's the winning formula, especially in football, is that especially I think it's a lot on the QB, and I think I think it's a leader, but I think it's also the coach is kind of a leader too, in that sense. I think they
Yeah, I
both
get like
share.
I'm kidding about the NBA sort of. I mean, the coach matters. Like the Bills had not the Bills, the Bulls. The Bulls had the right coach with Phil Jackson. Like he was great at what he did. He did it with the Bulls and he did with the Lakers. But it's a superstar driven league. Now I know in football, quarterback, you need the superstar quarterback, but there's so much more in football because there's 11 players in the field versus 5 players in the court. And you
Yeah,
have offensive players, defensive players. Like it's way different. And the coaching, I think, definitely has a much bigger impact on a football game than it does a basketball game at the professional level.
yeah, uh, I do think so because I think it's more of I think the leader more in the NFL of a locker room is usually the coach, more than likely the coach, because in the NBA I don't think it's usually like it could be the coach, but I think it's sometimes is the player. So I think it's different. I think you need a very good coach to win the NFL because you're running tough teams like Mahomes
Yeah,
and
well, that's like Brady and Belichick. You needed both of them, and people have a debate over which one was more important. Um, but you had those two. Now you have Mahomes and Reed. So that's the way it is. The coach is really important.
yeah, I think the coaching is also important to get that, like Steve Spagnuolo, to get in this guy, and I think that he's clutch as a coach. Like everyone knew what probably was. I mean, they called it out on the broadcast. They were going to blitz. They're going to bring the heat, but there's nothing they could have done about it. They found a way, and having those three guys unblocked is impressive. I think it could be a thing about the Bills not being able to coach well, but I think the Chiefs getting the guys to the QB, getting free rushers
Yeah.
is impressive.
Oh,
Because in a game like that, everything's hard to come by. But to easily get those three rushes to the QB,
Andy Reid and Spagnuolo, they have so much experience. They've won so much. And I think it goes to show that the older coaches that have been around a long time, that have been successful, like if you're an older coach, and I mean, you could go on and on coaching, but if you're not good at it, then, you shouldn't be coaching. But these guys are great at it. Andy Reid's an all-time great head coach. Spagnuolo's an all-time great defensive coordinator. I mean, you have those two guys together on the staff with Reid leading it. I just think it goes to show, like, the best situation for coaching is having the experienced, successful coaches like them. It's always going to be better than having younger coaches. Younger coaches, you get more innovation and new ideas, and I think there's use for that. And then a coach like McVay with the Rams, he's terrific. I mean, he's absolutely terrific. He's one of the best head coaches in the NFL. I mean, maybe he's off the top of my head, but he's at least top 5. He might be the second best, but Andy Reid is clearly the best head coach in the NFL.
and again, guess what? They're gonna have a coaching advantage again on in 13 days.
And I
So
think Sirianni's good. Like Sirianni took
yeah,
a lot of heat after last year, deservedly so. But look at what they've done. So credit to him. I know Barkley's a huge part of that,
yeah,
but and Roseman, their GM. I mean, they're a great organization. The
yeah.
Eagles. I was saying this to a few people yesterday and today. The Eagles are one of the best organizations in sports of the last quarter century. I mean, they're terrific. They've
Like
had
the
stability. Their owner, Jeffrey Lurie, is a great owner. Howie Roseman, their GM. They had Andy Reid as their coach for 14 years. Look, Sirianni last year ended as a disaster, but look at where he is this year. He's a good coach, but he's not anywhere near what Andy Reid is.
yeah,
The Eagles, and we'll break the Super Bowl down more so next week. The Eagles could beat the Chiefs. They could. Sirianni's not a negative for the Eagles. It's just, him, Andy Reid, like, to me, there's no contest. And in fairness to Sirianni, Reid versus almost anybody, there's no contest. There's only a few head coaches that I think I don't think they're as good as Reid, but could match up with him.
yeah. I think that about the Eagles is that the way they drafted is one of they drafted Avante Smith. Like they traded on draft night for AJ Brown. They made the smart decision to trade for him. They drafted Jalen Hurts in like the second, third round. And they like on the defense, Jalen Carter, they went out and drafted um Zach Bond, Cooper DeJean, they drafted Quinion Mitchell. So they have guys that they have drafted who are impact players. And I think that's big because that's a that's a player that comes to your organization. You don't have to go trade for them. You don't have to give assets up. You have them in your organization, and they've hit on every single one of them. I mean, Quinion Mitchell, rookie, he's been their starting corner, and he's been putting people on lockdown.
The Eagles are a winning franchise. They've been an excellent organization for the last 25 years. And this is a huge game for them. I mean, it's a Super Bowl, but in terms of their run of success, they've only won one Super Bowl in their history. But they got a Super Bowl title 7 years ago against the Patriots, Nick Foles, high-scoring game. So they get their first Super Bowl title. They lose to the Chiefs in a really good game 2 years ago. So this is huge for the Eagles in terms of their organization's legacy. To get a second Super Bowl title, it'd be the second one in the last 8 seasons. I mean, that would be enormous for their resume. Again, they've been an excellent organization for a quarter century, but they need that second Super Bowl championship. And then to beat the Chiefs after losing to them in a really good game that went down to the wire 2 years ago, I mean, that would just be enormous for the Eagles franchise.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think because they drafted well, they had enough money to go out and get Saquon because they didn't have players on rookie. They didn't have A lot of
Yeah.
players they had a lot of players on rookie contracts. So when you drafted well, you're able to do stuff like that. When you go out and you pay the extra dollar for a running back, when you go out and you get yourself the
Yeah,
top
they
running
had
back,
a brilliant offseason, and a lot of people wrote them off, including myself, and
they
I
took
think
advantage of a zombie at the wheel.
what's that?
They took advantage of a zombie at the wheel.
Uh, what do you mean?
Joe Shane.
Who?
Joe Shane, the Giants GM.
Oh, I thought it was a Giants reference. I
Yeah.
did. I was a little confused. But yeah, it helps to have the Giants in your division. But I'll never doubt the Eagles again. As long as they have Jeffrey Lurie as their owner, Howie Roseman as their GM, their organizational structure, I think they probably they definitely weren't they thinking about firing Sirianni? Like they were pondering it
Yeah.
after last year, but they decided to keep him. I guarantee, like Lori, probably Roseman, the higher ups, the brass of the Eagles organization, talked with him after last season. Said, "Look, we're going to bring you back, but you're on thin ice, and there better be changes. You better get your act together, and this thing better change quick, or we'll get rid of you in the middle of the season." Like, obviously, I don't know exactly what they said, but I think they really gave it to him straight, and he responded. So credit to them for keeping him. A lot of people say get rid of him. And look, I think that was a reasonable take last year because that was a disaster the way that ended. And some of his behavior, like I think there's a lot of strengths there with him, but he needed to mature as a coach.
Why
And
did
look,
he
hey,
want?
credit to the Eagles for keeping him, and then credit for Sirianni to put this together and get them to the Super Bowl. Like he's done a great job.
Yeah, he's done a great job, and I think that kind of shows the structure of the organization. Is they won't give up on a coach. I think it's when it's time to give up on a coach. It's time to give up on a coach. But I think like they didn't give up on him, which is a big for them because I think it's big for Jalen Hurts for him to have as your QB, your number one QB, your captain to not see 2 to 3 coaches in this like 10 year. You want him to have Nick Sirianni for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. The Eagles will make a move when it's time. So they fired Doug Peterson 3 years after they won their only Super Bowl. And I said at the time, and I know a lot of Eagles fans, and a lot of them said, like, you're getting rid of Peterson like 3 years after winning the Super Bowl after a down year. Like, what are you doing? But they know what they're doing. Like, they just know how to run their franchise. They're an excellent organization, really well run, and they fired Peterson. Sirianni took him to the playoffs the next year, took him to the Super Bowl, and almost beat Kansas City. Last year, they were off the 10-1 start, collapsed, disaster. They're back in the Super Bowl this year. And after last year, they made the decision to keep Sirianni. So they clearly know what they're doing. Look, I'll never doubt them again. As long as they have the same people in charge, the same organizational structure, like the Eagles just are a fantastic franchise.
Yeah, and
They're the opposite of the Jets. You can argue the Giants. I mean, the Giants, they're a mess now, but I mean, the Jets, Laurie versus Woody Johnson. I mean, you just, it's night and day.
Yeah, I think them going out and getting Saquon changed their franchise. And because they drafted an offensive line well, I think they got their offensive line and they had their QB. So they wanted to go out and they wanted to fill up their offensive line, and then they got their QB, which is a different way of building your team. The other teams want to get their QB, face the franchise, take an overall pick, whatever. We're going to go to our QB, and then we'll just do whatever with our offensive line. But this team was very meticulous about we're going to get an offensive line, and then we're going to plug in our QB. Not saying that Jalen Hurts is a plug-in player; he's great, but they made a effort to get an offensive line, which kind of shows why they are at this place right now.
And we've talked a lot about their offense, but they have the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL.
Yes,
so they're very good on both sides of the ball. They're a well balanced team.
They drafted well defensively, as I said. Like
you did say that before, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, it lines up to be an excellent Super Bowl. And again, we'll hold off. We'll break it all down next week. But it really lines up to be a fantastic game.
Well, I think it shows they only let the Commanders score 23 points. I mean, we talked about this team being an electric offense, and I think that kind of shows you something. Only 23 points given up to Jane Daniels and the Commanders.
And we were totally wrong about the game. I mean, I was totally wrong about the Eagles. I thought, look, I mean, they beat a banged up Packers team in the wild card round. Eagles didn't play well that day. I mean, the Packers were terrible and they were banged up. So I was like, okay, not much from that game. Close game with the Rams. I picked the Rams. I kept picking against the Eagles. I picked them to beat the Packers. But I was even on the fence about that game. I mean, Love was banged up. When he got hurt, I was like, all right, I'm going with the Eagles. But I've disrespected the Eagles. I'm on board with them in terms of saying, they're really good. And seeing them yesterday, I mean, just to play like that. Washington turned the ball over 3 times, but the Eagles protected the ball. I mean,
The way they force turnovers defensively, which is huge. Like,
yeah, and it's not just
it's
Saquon. Like, I think it's an
frustrating.
easy narrative to say, oh, it's Saquon. And, look, I mean, you see how valuable he is. I mean, he's incredible. But the Eagles are a really good football team. I mean, they're very good on both sides of the ball. And they just know what they're doing. And again, I'll never doubt the organization again as long as these same people are running the show. They're excellent. They're one of the best franchises, not only in the NFL, but in pro sports. And they have been for the last quarter century.
Yeah, and I think that the way they build their team is kind of the way I really think other teams should try to build their team. Because a lot of teams, I know this is a whole different thing, but a lot of teams try to build their team trying to get that QB, and they really forget about the offensive line. But you have to remember about how important that is. And the Eagles showed it. They give Jalen Hurts a lot of time to throw, which he can do great stuff outside the pocket, improvising. But when you give a QB like that time to throw, 246, 20 for 28, the guy scores a high level, and he throws the ball very well. So when you give him a clean pocket to throw, that's stuff that happened. And when you give Saquon a clean running lane and one player to beat instead of 3 players to beat, it's a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that performance yesterday, 8 touchdowns. I mean, it's just incredible. And they played an inexperienced Washington team. But look, both you and I picked Washington. I mean, I was in the mindset, hey, Washington's on a roll. What they did to
That
Detroit,
run defense was
Daniels
awful.
is incredible, which he is. But hey, the Eagles just took it to him. Just championship game. I mean, they were as good as it gets in that spot. So again, I mean, excellent organization, and they're more than just Saquon. I mean, he's enormous, no question about it. But they're a really good football team. It's whoever's doubted them, which I've been down them, but I think a lot of people
Yeah,
have.
I've been down on them too. I mean, I've
It
been
doesn't
down
mean you got to
the
pick them in the
highest.
Super Bowl, and we won't give a pick today. If you're not picking them against the Chiefs, doesn't mean you're doubting them. But I'll say this: I think it's going to be a close game. I think it'll be a very good game. We'll make our picks next week, though.
Yeah, it's gonna be. These are 2 great organizations. I think these are 2 teams that are coached very well. I think it's as much as Nick Sirianni. He's a good coach, and they also have great defense coordinator, and their defense is coached very well. I think the way they kind of neutralized Jaden Daniels to as much as possible was good. I think that they're coached well. Not to the same point, but these are 2 very well coached teams.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas City has elite coaching, all-time great coaching, but Philadelphia has very good coaching.
So yeah, let's get into. So we're halfway point of the NBA season. Kind of crazy. It went fast, but
Yeah, I remember when we first started Jacked Up and Being Frank, it was the NBA
when the
preseason.
cat trade happened, it was like a few days
Yeah.
before training camp.
Wasn't that the first show? The first show we were talking about the cat trade, I believe. It
Yeah.
was early on. Yes, the time flies. So here we are, halfway point of the NBA season. So, Jack, give us your update on the Knicks. There's a lot there. All-Star games coming up.
All-Star game. Knicks have 2 All-Star starters, not just all. So we know there's All-Stars already, which is crazy. You don't know the reserves till I don't even know. Maybe like another week.
Where is the All-Star game this year? I'll look it up.
I don't know. Um,
Keep going. I'll look it up.
but yeah, I mean the Knicks have two All-Star starters, so we know they have two All-Stars. So let's start with. I'm gonna go down the line of kind of
It's in San Francisco.
Sanford. Yeah, it's in San Francisco. So I'm gonna kind of go down the line of it's good for the reporters who aren't gonna suffer in the cold because that like when you're in Chicago and stuff, it's really hard for it's hard for people to enjoy that. Um, but yeah, let's start with the captain. Um, he's been great. I think he's had some games that are that are less what you want, but I think the like when he had
When I
17.
think Knicks captains, I think Patrick Ewing.
No, I'm saying captain of this current. We're talking about the
I
current
know.
team.
I'm
So
just kidding. I'm an old Knicks
he
fan.
has the
So
captain. So if you want to say so, he has the captain. He is the captain of the New York Knicks. They named him captain. So he is the captain of the Knicks. Um, but yeah, I think even like when he has 17 points against Brooklyn, he kind of closed the game for them. So I think the way he plays, he can come in late with especially with the way the team's built, is that you don't have to have 30 a game, but he's been great. Like every game, shooting the ball efficiently. Um, decision making this season been way better. We all think about Jalen Brunson being this scoring guy. Can he really play making assists and pass and get other players involved? But that has really changed this season. I know you're forced to, but this team is 30-16. It's a big reason he's getting other players involved, sharing the ball around, getting wins. It's what he's doing is great, and I think it comes to head of the stake, the captain Jalen Brunson of this current New York Knicks team. So let's go down the second guy, Carthy Towns. Man came in from Minnesota, 25 points per game. I think his 3-point shooting is big, and I said it when they made the trade for him. But the gravity that he has on defenses is that you have to come out and guard him from three. It kind of he can kind of beat somebody off the dribble, which is when you come out on him, he beats you off the dribble. So he's a unicorn type big for the Knicks, and his defense has been suspect, but I think it's fine enough for them, and I think he's good enough at the five that I want to keep him there because of the mismatches that can present. Instead of moving him to the four and moving Mitch to the five whenever he comes back, I like him at the five because of the mismatches. Like I'd rather him get guarded by Embiid than have him getting guarded by someone who's smaller and peskier. I know they'll probably put something on, but to start out, I'd rather Embiid guard him than somebody smaller or peskier, just for example. Because you can drive by him, you leave him open, he's shooting the three, so he has a lot of tools to work with, and he's been able to clean up the glass, which, of course, 7 foot tall, clean up the glass for the New York Knicks. Talking about cleaning up the glass, did you see Josh Hart's 2018-11 game? 20 points, 18 rebounds, 11 assists. At whatever his age is, he's having his career year, like by far. He's shooting the ball respectively at a 36% clip from three, and his rebounding and the way I think also Jalen Brunson gets credit with the assists, but I think Josh Hart gets other players involved. I think as much or even more than what Brunson does. The way he can get players involved, and the way he pushes the tempo for the Knicks, because the Knicks are kind of like a slow, grinded out team, but I think they kind of flip the gear whenever Josh Hart pitches the ball. It's more of a transition type team. So I think he has a different type of jolt to him that the Knicks need. And especially in tight games because you don't want to just be the team that wants to be a half court team. You got to be able to push the ball because you need easy opportunities, and that's what Josh Hart does. When he does his layup that always goes in when he's in transition, those really matter. Those are what gets easy points on the board. So yeah, I mean, let's get the fourth player of the starting five, Mikal Bridges. So what Mikal Bridges has done from three has been impressive. I mean, the way he is being able to shoot the ball, maybe a little bit inconsistent, but I like the way he's been able to catch and shoot. He's been getting better with the shot. There's less of a hitch in the shot. And I think he's turning this secondary ball handler, which is going to take him some time to learn how to become that secondary ball handler. So for the Knicks, it's going to be a kind of it's going to give him some time. But I think come playoff time or come in the next like 10, 20 games, you're going to see that Mikal Bridges you really want to see because of the way he'll learn how when he can pick his spots and when he can play make when you want him to dribble the ball, put the ball on the floor. So I think with Mikal, it's going to give him, you need to give him a little bit more time because he has a different type of role of that second option of a creation. So I think for him, it's going to be another 10 games or so from the really integrate into that role and understand his role for him. So, OG Anunoby, he's been more up and down in my opinion from the guy that we have seen where he's going to give you good defense. He obviously is going to that doesn't change, but the offense has been a little bit suspect this season. Um the way he's defending is always you know what you're going to get defensively, which is great. I think Thibodeau and the whole staff know what they're getting defensively, which is always the great thing about having him around. But I think the offense needs to be a little more consistent when we get down the stretch because 8 points, 9 rebounds is not what the Knicks want. They want more of the 17 to 16 points with good shooting because that's what his role is on the team. His role is to catch and shoot and make shots and maybe take it off the dribble at times. So that he has a role on this team that's very important. So if he's not clicking on all cylinders or not clicking on all clicking, this team is really this team's I think he's the big type of string. If you were to make a string of this team, he's a big factor in the pull of the string because of his defense and just the extra stuff he can give you offensively. I think whatever he gives you offensively is extra, and what OG Anunoby you're expecting him is way more extra. So that's why I think he can pull your team up. So that's why I think it's very important because whatever he's giving you offensively is extra, and he gives you so much offensively. He gives you on a not on a consistent basis yet, but he gives you consistently good basketball offensively, which is just an extra for this team because you know he's going to give you defensively. So I think that's kind of the kind of my summary on what OG Anunoby is doing this season. Now, what should I just do like the bench as a whole?
Yeah, keep breaking down the Knicks, and then I want to talk power rankings in the NBA.
So I'm going to talk about the bench. The bench, I think there's going to be a move to be made. There is always going to be a move to be made, I feel like. But they give you enough off the bench. Precious gives you 5 and 5. Precious is good. I think Precious is really good. Precious to his defense and offense, the way he can rebound, the way he can get steals. I think that is good, especially because he can guard multiple guys. He's not just a big, stocky center, which sometimes you do need, but it's good that there's a difference here where he can be a mobile big. Campaign's a spark plug. Deuce McBride, I need a little bit more consistency from him, but the defense is always why Tibbs puts him out there. So the offense is kind of extra. And Landry Shamet, he shot the ball well last game. 9 points, 3 rebounds, and assist, and shot 3 for 5 from three. So if the Knicks can get even half of that every game, they would be fine because they need points in every way possible off that bench. Not like they need it, but like they're gonna need every single point basically. They're gonna need every single point they get to try to pull off these wins, especially against top competition. Because I want to go and talk about the Knicks' upcoming schedule. Because
Big one tonight.
yeah, tonight big one against the Grizzlies. They did take care of a good opponent in the Kings. What pretty handily 143 to 120. kind of a high scoring game. But yes, they have the Grizzlies at home. They have the Nuggets at home soon. They have the Lakers and LeBron at home. They have the Rockets at home. So then you have a lull, and you're away in Toronto up north. But then you go back home and you play the Celtics. So then you cut off. Then you play the Pacers, and but between those games, they're gonna have to win some of those games. It's gonna be a tough. Those are gonna be tough games. I think the Knicks are ready for it. I think the Knicks are very ready for it. The Grizzlies are gonna be a tough one. These are some tough players the Knicks are playing. Tough superstars the Knicks are trying to deal with, or stars. So it's gonna be big for the defensive wings to show up. And I think a lot of the stuff that when I go on rant about the Knicks is because of their wings and because they give a lot to desire. They give a lot of they leave a lot to desire. But I think they're gonna have to give as much as possible because of the way you see. Let's go for example, John Moran, Desmond Bain, and Jared Jackson Jr. So those three players, you need good wings to kind of counteract that defensively, and the matchups you have to have wings on them. So I think you're gonna need some wings for that game, and especially to guard Jokic. You're gonna need
Buffalo
a ton of
wings?
play. What?
You said you need wings. Buffalo wings? I'm just kidding.
But yeah,
I
I
have
think
food on my mind.
to guard Jokic, you're gonna need a lot. So they're in the Garden. You're gonna see a lot of good basketball, a lot of good players coming in the Garden, a lot of high flyers, a lot of Jokic, whatever he is. He's ridiculous.
Yeah, so Grizzlies and Nuggets coming up.
Yeah. So I know you want to talk some power rankings.
Yeah, so the NBA.com power rankings, which came out about 6 hours ago. So this morning, just want to get your take on it. So I'll rattle it off. Jack, it's in our comment section. So you can take a look at it. You have it visually. So NBA.com power rankings as of this morning, starting at 15. You got the Suns, and they went 1 through 30, but I just included the top
Suns at
15, so the top half of the league. Suns at 15, Kings at 14, Mavericks at 13, Lakers at 12, Bucks 11, Timberwolves 10, Clippers 9, Pacers 8, Nuggets 7, Knicks 6, Grizzlies 5. So you have 6 versus 5 tonight at the Garden. Celtics 4, Cavs 3, Rockets 2, Thunder 1. So what stands out here to you?
Rockets too.
Do you agree with that?
The Rockets are a fun team. So I love watching them. Actually, I really do. But I think Cleveland has lost. So if it's power rankings, I can kind of because Cleveland has lost some tight games. So so yeah, I think I agree. I mean, this Rockets team, I said it. I mean, they're a tier above the Knicks. I don't even think it's like a bad thing anymore. This team is ridiculous. Like this team plays defense. I think we talk about coaching before in football. I think they got an identity with their coach and Ime Udoka and the way they can really play defense. So, and they also have Şengün. They have Jalen Green offensively. So they run a lot of good 2-man action. So they're really concise in their offense. So when they have all those players, Fred VanVleet hitting his threes, I think what he does is extra for them. And Amen Thompson, they have just guys who are very athletic and can put havoc on teams. So a lot of teams like the Knicks who struggle against athletic teams, they're not the only team that does that. In my opinion, a lot of teams struggle against those athletic teams, and the Rockets are one of them, which is why they get a lot of these wins. Because when you play Amen Thompson and Tari Eason, those are two guys that people haven't really heard of, but they are guys that are athletic, and a lot of these teams lose because of them because they cannot keep up with the athleticism of the Rockets. And the defense, of course. The defense. And I think their shooting has been passable. They've always called him Steady Freddy. Steady Freddy has been steady enough for them to keep them in check and to keep their shooting well. And Jalen Green has made that leap up 21 points per game. So they have that number one scorer. And they have Şengün, who's basically like if you were to make a Jokic, but like a lesser down version, but still like pretty good. Like this guy's still pretty good. It's 19 and 10, giving you 5 assists. Really the the kind of backbone of that offense is a center who can really make some good passes. So for them to get offense in different ways. So that's why they're kind of a hard matchup to deal with.
Celtics at 4. Do you think they belong at 4?
The Celtics are going to coast, but they're going to win. So they're coasting right now.
So do they really belong at 4? I know these power rankings are subjective, but do you really think they belong at 4?
They're 32-14. I mean, they beat the Mavs. They dropped one against the Lakers.
Are they going to turn it up to try to get the number 1 seed, or they don't care about that?
Maybe. I mean, I think that the Cavs are going to start losing some games, and I mean, the Celtics, they play the Rockets tonight, which is huge. The Celtics
Where is that game?
It's in Boston, TD Garden. So that's going to be a big game. Tatum against the Rockets, and that Celtics team against that defense. So
Boston is favored by 6.5 tonight. I know they're home.
What? No, they're not home.
6.5.
They're not home. They're in TD Garden.
Yeah, Boston's favored by 6.5. They're home.
Oh no, I thought you said Houston. Houston's favor. No, Boston's favor.
Boston's favored by 6.5 points. So Boston's 32-14. The Rockets are 30-14. So they're tied in the loss column. So how does NBA.com have the Celtics 4 and the Rockets 2? If they basically have the same record, same amount of losses. And Boston's a 6.5 point favorite tonight. Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Are the Celtics like a great home team?
Again, I mean, if they're not.
Their last matchup, they blew them out on January 3rd.
Who blew out who?
The Celtics.
The Celtics blew out the Rockets?
In Houston. On January 3rd.
And I understand how the Celtics are 4 and the Rockets are 2.
Well, the Rockets have kind of climbed up the rankings. So I think it's whatever it is, it's gonna be a huge game. I think for them. 6-point favorite's kind of crazy. I would make it more 3 or 2. I still think the Celtics are favored because they're at home and they beat them. They absolutely demolished them last game. So I think that's why they would be favored. But I think by 2 or 3, I think would be the right thing because of the way this Rockets team is trending up. And it's kind of like when you get to this time of the regular season, it's kind of like a train that you gotta stop for them. It's just like it's heading up, and you got to step in front of it. So for them, they're going to be a hard team to stop for the Celtics. But yeah, it's gonna be a game to watch for tonight.
Would you say right now we're heading likely towards a Thunder Celtics NBA Finals?
Yes, I would say that. I think that would be great. Those are two teams that match up well, in my opinion. I definitely have my winner in that series, but I think that's definitely what it is, and in my opinion, I would be surprised. Some people wouldn't be surprised something else happened, but I would be surprised if something else happened for them.
It seems like it'd be a big upset if it's not that fun.
I mean, once the Knicks get in the playoffs, I'm going to be pretty delusional if they get past first 2 rounds. So, I'm just keeping
Knicks fans. Should you root for the Celtics to overtake the Cavs to become the number 1 seed? So,
I think the Cavs are more beatable.
2, and the Knicks are 3. So the Knicks would get the Cavs in the second round. So at least
I think
don't get Boston until the conference finals. Is that what you root for right now? Like, just all right. Knicks aren't going to catch the Celtics. They're 2 games behind, but they're not going to catch them. So just root for the Celtics to leapfrog Cleveland. So the Knicks get Cleveland in the second round. Does that make sense? Or do you still have hope that the Knicks could catch Boston?
I think Cleveland has shown some cracks in their armor in these last few games.
Would you much rather face Cleveland?
Yes, definitely. And I think even before they lose these type of games, they're a team that's definitely beatable. Now, not saying the Celtics are unbeatable.
Yes, I think you got to hope that the Celtics, really go at the number 1 seed and get it. So Knicks stay in a 3 spot. I think they're good there. This Cavs drop to 2. I mean, you'll have to somehow leap the Cavs 2 and get to the number 2 seed, so the Knicks have home court advantage of that series. But, at least have that 2-3 matchup against Cleveland, and then, Boston would be for the conference finals. Because it'd be really disappointing for the Knicks if they don't get to the conference finals. I mean, they've been in the second round the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. Like, if they get Boston in the second round, you're pretty much going to lose in the second round. I'm not saying it's impossible to beat them, but it's a really tall task. So for the Knicks, I think it'd be nice if it's
unless you get
them and the Cavs in the second.
Unless you get a cakewalk first round and they somehow get a tough first round, like your rest. This is the whole talk for the playoffs, but I think it could definitely be close if the Knicks have a rest.
Well, you would think the Celtics first round is going to be a cakewalk, whoever they play.
Yeah,
and it could be for the Knicks too.
Definitely, yeah.
I don't think you count on, the Knicks have a cakewalk first round and the Celtics have a tough first round series. Like, the odds of that are really low, almost zero. But I think it's a big deal for the Knicks. I think getting to the conference finals is pretty much a must. Like, last year, they lost in Game 7 of the second round. The year before, they went to 6 against Miami.
Then 1 game better. What are we losing Game 1 this year? No, this Knicks team has progressively gotten better. And that's the next step for them. They need to get it there, especially with pushing it's like they push all their chips to the middle of the table. We're gonna go out and we need to make the conference finals at least, because they put all the chips in the middle of the table. So it's now or never, basically, for them. So they need to make it the conference finals.
Yeah. I think if they don't get to the conference finals, it's a disappointment. But it's tough if they match up with Boston. And it's really no fault of the Knicks, I guess. I mean, because Cleveland's having this ridiculous season. So the Knicks, they get the number 3 seed, but then they wind up with Boston because the Cavs have this incredible season and finish ahead of the Celtics. But then the Knicks, they'd have to play a very competitive series against the Celtics. So I think if they took them 6 or more, so 6 or 7, and lost, it's like, okay, you got the Celtics in the second round. What are you going to do? But I think it'd be nice if Boston gets that number 1 seed so the Knicks can avoid them to the conference finals. And that's a big hurdle for the Knicks franchise. They have not been in the conference finals since 2000, so it's been a quarter century.
Big hurdle for them. Big hurdle for even the current Knicks team. So,
I mean, it's incredible to say this, Jack. I was at the last Knicks conference finals game. I think it was early June. I think it was June 2nd, 2000. They lost to Indiana Game 6 of the Garden. Reggie Miller scored 34 points, 17 in the fourth quarter. My father and I were in the 10th row behind the basket right next to the Knicks bench. I swear Patrick Ewing looked over at me. Like, he did. He looked at my, obviously wasn't looking at me, but like he looked in that direction. Like, coolest thing. You're 15 years old. Yeah. I was at the end of my freshman year of high school. So that was the last Knicks conference finals games 25 years ago. Like, if you told me in 2000 the Knicks would not go to the conference finals in a quarter century, and if you go to 2025, they still haven't been back to the conference finals. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, they'll probably go next year. You took it for granted as a Knicks fan back then. So it's a lot of pressure there to get to the conference finals. So just like to, not to keep getting hung up on it, but it'd be nice to avoid the Celtics to the conference finals.
Yeah. And this is probably the best team, best opportunity for them to make the conference finals. I think that the East is in my opinion, besides the Celtics, it's kind of open. Like, that means that's like, even with the Celtics, they're not like the juggernaut of a team. Like, they're a juggernaut, but they're not like top, like you can't beat them.
Yeah, we were talking about the last show. They're not Jordan's Bulls. They're not Kobe and Shaq's Lakers. They're not the LeBron Heat teams, the Spurs with Duncan and Robinson for the first part of that. They're not that level. I mean, they're
really
great.
good.
And they're playing to be all time, but they're not that level. But they're going to be really tough to beat. So that's why it'd be nice if they get the 1 seed and the Knicks could avoid them. Now, if the Knicks beat the Cavs in the second round, which if they get the Cavs, absolutely the expectation is to win that series. It'll be disappointing if they lose.
Disappointing.
But if they go play the Celtics, then the expectation is you got to play the Celtics competitively. You can't get swept. You can't lose in 5 games. You got to go 6 and play a competitive series. Or maybe if it goes 5, it's like, close games and you lost tough games. But there's going to be expectations to be competitive against the Celtics.
Yeah.
Which is great. I mean, it's great to talk about the Knicks in that fashion. It's such a long time. So it's nice that the Knicks are very good again. I mean, they're right there. And again, they're power rankings have them at 6 right now, so they're on the cusp of top 5 team in the NBA. They're definitely a top 3 team in the East.
Yeah. And the East is gonna be hard, but thank goodness they're on the West. The West is difficult. The West is very difficult. So yeah, I think the West.
Yeah, you're definitely better off in the East. I mean, it sets up well, but again, it doesn't if they're matched up with Boston in the second round.
Yeah. Sets them up well. So yeah, do you want to send us off? I have an outro.
Yeah. So great show today. NFL obviously is the main topic right now in the world of sports. This Super Bowl matchup is a great matchup. There's so much there with the history of the game and how much is on the line historically. Obviously, there's a lot on the line with the Super Bowl every year, but there's so much on the line for the Chiefs, the Eagles, obviously the three-peat, but we talked about the Eagles and their franchise. So there's a lot to talk about with the matchup. We broke down the AFC Championship game, the NFC Championship game today. So next week we'll preview the Super Bowl, cover everything, break down the teams, the storylines, the history that's being played for. So I think, Eagles Chiefs, I had it 2 years ago. So big time matchup. So this is a Super Bowl that will be a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement. So we'll get into all of it next week. NBA a little bit next week, Jack, right? And maybe we'll get some baseball, see what's going on in baseball. Pete Alonso still in the news. But great show today again, and we'll be back next week, Super Bowl week.